Welcome back to my channel. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at your own life and said, I am responsible for this? Not your parents, not your past, not the people who doubted you, you. Because the moment you stop pointing fingers is the moment your power comes back. See, the world will always have opinions. People will always have expectations. Noise will always exist. But the question is, can you hear your own voice in the middle of all that chaos? Can you stand still long enough to recognize what you are capable of? Because focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary, it is discipline. It is respect for the life you have been given. Too many people are busy watching others, comparing paths, measuring progress, scrolling through someone else's highlight reel and wondering why their own life feels stuck. But you do not win by watching, you win by working. You win by building when nobody is clapping. You win by showing up when it's hard, when it's lonely, when nobody is checking for you. Focus on yourself, not tomorrow. Not next year, right now, because your future is listening to what you do today. Personal responsibility is the moment you stop negotiating with your circumstances and start commanding your direction. It is the shift from asking, why did this happen to me? To declaring, what am I going to do about it? Because the truth is, your life does not move forward based on what you deserve. It moves forward based on what you decide. The day you take ownership is the day excuses lose their power over you. No more blaming your past, no more pointing at your environment, no more waiting for someone to rescue you. When you accept that your choices shape your reality, you reclaim control, and control is everything. See, it's easy to talk about responsibility when things are going well, but real ownership shows up when life is unfair, when the plan fails, when people walk away, when doors close. That is where character is revealed, not in comfort, but in challenge, not in applause, but in silence. When nobody is cheering you on, when nobody is checking in, when nobody is validating your struggle, that is when personal responsibility steps in and says, I still show up. Because discipline is not emotional. Discipline is a decision. You cannot change where you started, but you can absolutely change where you are headed. And that power is not in motivation, it is in commitment. Every morning you wake up, you are given a choice, repeat the same patterns or rewrite your story. And no one else can make that choice for you. Not your family, not your friends, not your circumstances. You either take the wheel or you stay in the passenger seat watching your life drive by. Taking responsibility also means being honest with yourself, brutally honest. It means admitting when you are the problem, when you are procrastinating, when you are avoiding growth, when you are settling for comfort instead of chasing potential. That level of honesty is uncomfortable, but it is powerful. Because you cannot fix what you refuse to face, and you cannot grow beyond what you are willing to confront. When you own your actions, you own your results. When you own your habits, you own your future. This is not about perfection. This is about progress. This is about showing up even when you are tired. This is about choosing discipline over distraction. This is about doing the work even when nobody is watching. Because greatness is not built in public, it is built in private. And every private decision shapes your public. This personal responsibility is not pressure, it is freedom. It is the freedom to change, the freedom to grow, the freedom to become who you were meant to be. Because once you stop blaming and start building, once you stop complaining and start committing, once you stop waiting and start working, everything begins to shift. Your mindset sharpens, your confidence rises, your standards elevate, and you no longer move through life as a victim of circumstance, but as an architect of your future, fully aware that every step you take, every choice you make, and every sacrifice you commit is shaping the person you are becoming right now. Personal responsibility begins with a clear, uncompromising acknowledgement that your life is the direct result of your decisions, not your intentions. It is the discipline to recognize that every outcome, good or bad, traces back to a choice you made or a choice you avoided. When you accept that truth, you stop negotiating with reality and start shaping it. You no longer wait for conditions to be perfect or for permission to move forward. You act, you commit, you take ownership, and in that ownership, you discover strength you did not know you had. Too many people live in reaction mode, responding to circumstances instead of directing them. They let their environment dictate their energy, their mood, their ambition. Personal responsibility breaks that pattern. It demands that you lead yourself when no one else will. It requires you to show up early, stay late, and do the work even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is inconvenient, even when there is no immediate reward. That is not punishment, that is preparation. Taking responsibility also means refusing to outsource your growth. No mentor, manager, partner, or opportunity can do the internal work for you. They can open doors, but you must walk through them. They can provide guidance, but you must apply. They can offer support, but you must carry the weight. When you accept this, you stop expecting rescue and start building resilience. You become reliable to yourself. You keep promises you make in private. You honor commitments that no one else sees. That is where credibility is formed. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you handled what was in your control. not perfectly, but honestly. Not flawlessly, but consistently. Responsibility sharpens your focus. It reduces distraction. It clarifies priorities. You waste less time explaining and more time executing. You complain less and produce more. You stop rehearsing excuses and start rehearsing solutions. And over time, that shift compounds into competence. Personal responsibility is not about harsh self-judgment. It is about accurate self-assessment. It is the courage to say, this is where I am and this is where I am going. It is the willingness to audit your habits, your routines, your standards, and make the necessary adjustments. It is choosing growth over comfort, effort over ease, discipline over desire. It is understanding that every small decision is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you live this way, setbacks lose their sting because you know you can respond. Delays lose their power because you know you can adapt. Criticism loses its weight because you know you are working. You become less dependent on validation and more committed to progress. You measure success by consistency, not applause. You trust the process because you are invested in it. And you stop asking for chances because you are creating them step by step through deliberate action and relentless accountability, building momentum through repetition, refining your approach through experience, strengthening your resolve through challenge, and reinforcing your identity through choices that align with who you intend to be day after day. Decision by decision, even when it is difficult, even when it is quiet, even when it requires sacrifice, because you understand that ownership is not a moment, it is a posture, and that posture shapes how you move through every situation, how you respond to every obstacle, how you carry yourself in every room, and how you hold the line when pressure tests your standards, when fatigue questions your discipline, when doubt whispers that it would be easier to let someone else take the lead, knowing that leadership of self is the foundation of every other form of leadership, and that without it, nothing else holds, nothing else lasts, nothing else grows. Inner discipline is the quiet force that carries you when motivation disappears. It is the structure you lean on when emotions fluctuate, when energy is low, when the excitement fades. Anyone can start strong, anyone can feel inspired. But discipline is what sustains performance when the feeling is gone. It is the decision to do what must be done even when you would rather do anything else. It is not loud, it is not glamorous. It does not seek attention. It simply works. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. Discipline acts and becomes ready through action. It does not negotiate with comfort. It does not ask for ideal conditions. It moves forward regardless of mood, regardless of weather, regardless of opinion. That is why disciplined people are dependable. You can count on them because they have learned to count on themselves. They do not require supervision to perform. They do not need reminders to show up. Their standard is internal, not external. Inner discipline is built in the small moments. The alarm you do not snooze, the workout you complete when no one is watching, the task you finish when it would be easier to delay. These choices look insignificant in isolation, but together they form a pattern, and patterns become identity. Over time, you are no longer forcing yourself to be disciplined. You are simply being who you are. That is when consistency becomes natural. There is a cost to discipline, but there is a far greater cost to the absence of it. Without discipline, potential stays theoretical, talent remains unused, dreams stay in conversation. Discipline is the bridge between intention and execution. It turns ideas into outcomes. It turns plans into progress. It turns pressure into performance. When you cultivate it, you reduce friction in your life. You waste less time debating and more time doing. You spend less energy resisting and more energy producing. Inner discipline also creates mental clarity. When your habits are structured, your mind is free. You are not constantly deciding what to do next because your system already knows. That frees you to focus on quality, not just activity. It elevates your standards. You stop tolerating what you used to accept. You become precise. You become efficient. You become deliberate. Discipline is not about being rigid. It is about being reliable. It is not about punishment. It is about alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and what you actually do. Every time you follow through, you reinforce trust in yourself. And self-trust is powerful. It removes hesitation. It reduces doubt. It builds confidence that is not dependent on external validation. People often confuse discipline with restriction, but in reality, it is liberation. It frees you from impulsiveness. It frees you from inconsistency. It frees you from regret. It gives you options. It gives you leverage. It gives you control. And control, when used correctly, becomes momentum. Momentum becomes mastery. Mastery becomes impact. That is the trajectory. Quiet decisions, repeated actions, compounding results, a life shaped intentionally rather than accidentally, guided by standards rather than moods, anchored in principle rather than convenience, driven by commitment rather than comfort, built day by day through choices that are not always easy, not always exciting, not always visible, but always purposeful and always moving you closer to the person you are determined to become. Explain key point note 3 into 450 words. Clarity of purpose is what gives direction to your effort and meaning to your movement. Without it, you stay busy but not effective, active but not advancing. You expend energy but do not build momentum. When your purpose is clear, your decisions become sharper and your priorities become simpler. You stop reacting to everything and start responding only to what matters. Distractions lose their appeal because you know where you are going. Noise fades because you are tuned to a different frequency. Purpose is not about knowing every step, it is about knowing the direction, and that direction becomes your filter for every choice you make. When you lack clarity, you chase everything. When you have clarity, you commit to something. That commitment creates focus, and focus creates results. You stop saying yes to things that drain you and start saying yes to things that develop you. You protect your time, you respect your energy, you become intentional, you move with strategy instead of impulse. And that discipline in decision making separates those who progress from those who stay stuck in motion without movement. Clarity of purpose also stabilizes you under pressure. When challenges arise, you do not panic because you understand why you are doing what you are doing. When criticism comes, you do not collapse because your direction is not determined by opinion. When opportunities appear, you evaluate instead of reacting. You do not jump at every open door. You choose the doors that align. That level of discernment only comes when your purpose is defined. Purpose sharpens resilience. It gives you a reason to endure when it would be easier to quit. It gives you a reason to push when you are tired. It gives you a reason to stay disciplined when comfort is calling. When you know what you are building, the sacrifice makes sense. The late nights have meaning. The early mornings have value. The setbacks have context. You are not just working, you are constructing something intentional. Clarity also simplifies complexity. Life becomes less chaotic when you know what matters. You stop overthinking minor things because you are focused on major goals. You stop arguing with people who are not aligned because you are invested in growth. You stop explaining yourself because your actions are doing the talking. Purpose brings quiet confidence, not arrogance, not noise, confidence rooted in direction. When you are clear, you move differently. You walk with intention, you speak with precision, you plan with foresight. You execute with discipline. You are no longer driven by urgency, you are guided by vision. And vision outlives motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Vision remains. Vision holds you steady when emotions shift. Vision anchors you when circumstances change. Clarity of purpose does not mean everything is easy. It means everything is aligned. And alignment is powerful. When your values match your actions, when your goals match your habits, when your vision matches your effort, progress becomes inevitable, not instant, not effortless, but inevitable because you are no longer scattered. You are centered, you are no longer distracted, you are directed. And when direction is clear, energy is focused, effort is efficient, and growth is intentional, creating a path that is not random but deliberate, not reactive but strategic, not confused but committed, moving forward with conviction rather than hesitation, with intention rather than impulse, with purpose rather than pressure. Growth through struggle is the understanding that difficulty is not a detour, it is the path. Most people see pressure as a signal to retreat, but those who grow learn to see it as a signal to rise. Every challenge carries instruction. Every setback carries information. Every obstacle carries an opportunity to develop strength you would never build in comfort. Struggle exposes weakness, and exposure is the first step to improvement. You cannot refine what you never test, and life tests you through resistance. When things are easy, character stays hidden. When things get hard, character is revealed. Pressure does not create who you are, it shows who you are. It brings your habits, your mindset, your discipline to the surface. That is why struggle is valuable. It tells you where you need to grow. It shows you where you lack structure. It highlights where you rely on emotion instead of commitment. If you are willing to listen, struggle becomes a teacher. Growth requires friction. Muscles grow by tearing. Skill grows by repetition. Confidence grows by confrontation. Nothing meaningful develops in a vacuum. You are sharpened by challenge. You are strengthened by resistance. You are refined by difficulty. And the more you avoid struggle, the more you delay growth. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it limits you in the long term. Struggle is uncomfortable, but it expands you. There is a discipline that is forged only in hardship, when you have to show up without support, when you have to perform without praise, when you have to persist without results. That is where resilience is built. That is where self-respect is earned, because you know what it cost you. You know what you pushed through. You know what you refused to let break you. That internal record becomes a source of quiet confidence. Struggle also simplifies your priorities. When things get hard, you quickly learn what matters and what does not. You stop wasting energy on distractions. You stop entertaining unnecessary drama. You focus on survival, stability, progress. Hard times cut through the noise. They force clarity. They demand efficiency. They require discipline. And in that demand, you grow. Most people want the reward without the resistance, the result without the process, the strength without the strain. But growth does not work that way. It is earned. It is built. It is developed through repetition under pressure, through consistency in discomfort, through discipline in difficulty. That is why the strongest people are often the ones who have been through the most. They did not become strong by avoiding pain. They became strong by enduring it. When you stop asking why it is hard and start asking what it is building, your perspective changes. You no longer see struggle as punishment, you see it as preparation. You no longer see obstacles as barriers, you see them as training. You no longer see pressure as threat, you see it as development. That shift is powerful because it keeps you moving forward instead of pulling back. Growth through struggle is not about glorifying hardship, it is about respecting the process. It is about understanding that every layer of strength, every level of confidence, every measure of capability is constructed through resistance. You do not become resilient by reading about resilience. You become resilient by surviving what you thought you could not. You do not become disciplined by thinking about discipline. You become disciplined by doing what is difficult consistently. You do not become strong by wishing for strength. You become strong by carrying weight until it no longer breaks you, and then adding more step by step, challenge by challenge, learning to stand when it would be easier to sit, learning to push when it would be easier to pause, learning to persist when it would be easier to quit, allowing struggle to shape you rather than shrink you, allowing pressure to build you rather than break you, understanding that what tests you is what trains you, and what trains you is what transforms you. Consistency over motivation is the understanding that feelings are unreliable, but systems are dependable. Motivation comes and goes. It rises when things are exciting and disappears when things become routine. If you wait to feel inspired, you will spend most of your life waiting. Consistency does not wait. It moves, it acts, it executes. It does not require perfect conditions or perfect moods. It requires commitment. And commitment is what produces results. The people who win are not the most motivated, they are the most consistent. Motivation is emotional. Consistency is structural. One depends on how you feel, the other depends on who you decide to be. When you build consistent habits, you remove decision fatigue, you stop negotiating with yourself, you stop debating whether or not you should act. The action is already scheduled, it is already part of your identity. You do it because that is what you do. That is how momentum is created. Not through bursts of energy, but through steady execution. Consistency compounds. Small actions repeated daily create massive change over time. The problem is most people underestimate the power of small steps and overestimate the power of big moments. They wait for the breakthrough instead of building the foundation. They chase intensity instead of discipline. But intensity burns out, discipline sustains. Consistency is not impressive in the beginning, but it is unstoppable in the end. That is why results often look sudden to outsiders, but they are always the product of long, quiet work. When you commit to consistency, you stop relying on external validation. You are no longer driven by applause or approval. You are driven by standards. You measure success by effort, not recognition. You become process-focused instead of outcome-obsessed, and that shift changes everything. Because when you fall in love with the process, the results become inevitable. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce your identity as someone who keeps their word. That internal trust is powerful, it eliminates self-doubt, it reduces hesitation, it strengthens confidence. You stop questioning whether you can do it because you have evidence that you will. And that evidence is built through repetition. Motivation might get you started, but consistency keeps you going. Motivation might push you for a day, but consistency carries you for a lifetime. Anyone can be excited for a week, anyone can be disciplined for a month. But the ones who separate themselves are the ones who show up when it is boring, when it is repetitive, when it is lonely, when it is unrecognized. That is where real growth happens. Consistency simplifies success. You no longer need complex strategies or perfect timing. You just need to show up, do the work, repeat, adjust, improve, repeat again. That cycle, done long enough, produces mastery. It produces excellence. It produces results that look effortless but are built through effort. When you choose consistency over motivation, you take control of your progress. You stop being a victim of your emotions and become a leader of your actions. You move even when you are tired. You work even when you are uninspired. You commit even when you are uncertain. And that is the difference. Because success is not built on how you feel. It is built on what you do day after day, choice after choice, action after action, showing up when it is easy, showing up when it is hard, showing up when it is inconvenient, showing up when it is uncomfortable, showing up when nobody is watching, showing up when nobody is clapping, showing up when there is no guarantee, trusting that repetition will build results, trusting that discipline will build strength, trusting that consistency will build the life you say you want, even when the process is slow, even when progress is quiet, even when growth is invisible. Because you understand that every small action is a deposit, every disciplined choice is an investment, and every consistent effort is shaping the future version of you in ways you cannot yet see. Thanks to watch my video, please subscribe.